Yes, I am back to talk to you about UX. Today, about designing for the post screen era. So, I have a question for you. Who here has watched friends or family use ChatGPT? Raise your hands. Okay, a good amount of people, right? Have any of you wanted to shake them and tell them they're using it wrong? Yes. Okay, great. Now, that's because a very small group of people are basically building something that's going to impact billions of lives. And honestly, it's keeping me up at night. Because the most important thing is what this experience is going to do for people every day. And most of the people aren't really thinking about those humans. They're thinking about the technology, the business model, the gold rush opportunity that we're currently in, which is exciting. But for something that's going to change life as we know it, we need to be thinking about those other people a bit more today. So that's why I'm here today, to represent your friends and your family, and to show you not only what's possible, but what we're currently getting wrong. So let me start with a couple numbers. The first is 500,000. $500,000 a day is what it costs to run ChatGPT. And what are we using it for? Summarizing emails, writing emails, explaining emails, apologizing emails. Basically, we've built moon landing infrastructure, state-of-the-art technology for our inbox issues, and are wasting basically $500,000 every day on this. But the extra painful truth is that 50% of people can't even use it effectively. If we look at literacy studies, right, half of the population can't even craft prompts well enough to get a good result. I mean, maybe that's why they did it, because otherwise it'd be more expensive, but you know. So when we think AI has arrived, we're here, what a time to be alive, we are in the future. What does that future look like? And where do we go from here? You might turn to Hollywood. Minority Report, one of my favorite films. And you too might have been super excited when Vision OS came out, and finally it looked like we could start swiping things around. And if that's the case, go watch Juan's talk tomorrow about Vision OS and gestures, because it's not quite where I'm going today. But it's a good film. It got a lot of things right. The part that I found the funniest and scariest is the personalized advertising, where, all the ads start speaking to Tom Cruise in the movie, if you've seen it. But then this is my absolute favorite thing. Watch as they take a couple of profiles and load it on a glass slab. And then they take the glass slab and insert it on another glass screen. So not only once, not only twice, but 3 times in this film are they moving data physically from one place to another using a glass disk, right? Which really is a glass floppy disk. Because cloud computing was literally unimaginable at the time, even to Spielberg's team of experts. So this got me thinking, what's our glass disk, right? What are we building today that seems so laughably wrong in 2035? Because we've really entered a new era. AI is basically the third interface paradigm. We've had 3 so far. It started off with batch processing. So if you watch The Imitation Game, the Alan Turing movie with Benedict Cumberbatch, or things like that, you know that we started off submitting a complete workflow, going to sleep, hoping for the best, coming back, being incredibly frustrating, wanting to break the machine and start all over again. But it gave us the ability to batch process information and data. Super exciting. We then moved on to command-based computing. And that's really all that we've known, probably, right? We tell a computer how to do something step by step, and that's become easier over the years. Perhaps it used to be punch cards, MS-DOS commands, programming is a form of that. But now we have a phone, we can swipe, tap, even speak to it. Siri doesn't always listen, doesn't always get it right, but we can tell a computer what we want and how we want it to do it. But now we're in a real new space. Intent-based computing. We just tell a computer the outcome we want. And it is actually a really strange paradigm because it's the exact opposite of what we've been doing for the last 60 years. The last 60 years, we were in control. We knew exactly how things happened to get that outcome. Now we're asking for an outcome and we completely let go of the control in between. And Hollywood has been imagining this for ages, right? Her, Iron Man, Star Trek, 2001 Space Odyssey. All these films have cool representations of people just casually chatting with AI. But still, how do we get there? I think the post-screen era, if you will, isn't about removing screens. It's about screens knowing when to get out of the way. And in order to do that, we need to trust it. And that's really, really hard at the moment, right? Because we have effectively two modes of AI. The first one is AI is a shortcut. And we're pretty familiar with this, right? I come to Paris, I'm like, hey, how do I get to Théâtre de Paris? And how do I turn on data roaming? I know that I have to go to settings and figure out where Apple put it this time because it's somewhere buried in eSIMs and whatever. I can't find it. I just want to be able to get my Uber and get here. But we already know these things exist. And so AI could make them faster. So if I could just trust Siri to say, hey, turn on data roaming, which it didn't do, and also it needs data to actually do that, but story for another time. That'd be pretty cool. It works because we've learned it visually first, right? We already know that the settings app exists. We've tried to turn this on and off ourselves before. And so in this context, you might imagine app icons might as well disappear because we know what's possible. We're going to just go and ask and say, hey, turn on data roaming, and we'll be done. But there's a second type, which is the what the fuck does this do? Really though, what's on the agenda today? Ask anything. So we've presented the world with this beautiful model. It's got insane capability, but there's no visual foundation and no mental model to draw from. And you might be thinking, but Maxime, I get to ask it anything. I've been waiting for AI. This is the best time to be alive. And you dive headfirst in, which is awesome, and you should do that. But for most people in the world, we've absolutely thrown them into the deep end, right? They have nothing, they have no understanding of what is going on under the hood of that screen. And so to build a little bit of empathy for them, I'm going to give you a little example. So imagine a restaurant you've been to 50 times, right? Let's be honest, we've all done it. You might know already, I want a Big Mac or six-piece of nuggets kind of day. Or maybe I'm going to try fish fillet today. You know the menu by heart because you've been there so many times. Now, if someone walks up to you or the waiter or heck, even a friend, because you're not even physically going to the restaurant, you're just asking someone to bring you something, you can say, hey, this is my order. And it works because we already have the mental model of the menu. But what if it's your first time and you're going somewhere, there's no menu, there are no pictures, there are no prices. You just sat in a restaurant and they come up to you and say, what would you like to eat? Well, what do you make? What do you do? Anything. We can make you anything. And again, you might get excited. Oh, you mean I can ask for ice cream? And my favorite cake? What about mom's lasagna? And then you start to wonder, did they know how to make my mom's lasagna? What kind of ingredients are they using? How do I know that they've got the right recipe? Because, there's lasagna and then there's my mom's lasagna. And what I want is my mom's lasagna, which is not just lasagna. Can you do that? And the problem isn't the food, just like the problem isn't the technology. It's the context and it's the trust that we currently don't have. Because we're skipping the training wheels entirely, right? We're going straight to just asking for what people want without first showing them what's possible. We're skipping the phase of the design. And quite frankly, most companies just slapped a chat box on their product and said, we're now AI powered, right? And yes, there are many people still working very hard at figuring out how can we leverage AI? How can we really give users something awesome and cool? But this idea of the chat box just being slapped places reminds me a lot of this teapot. This is one of my favorite books, The Design of Everyday Things by Don Norman. Don Norman's principles have guided us in interface design since 1988. And if you look closely at this teapot, yes, it looks wonky, but it's designed in a way that effectively you'll burn yourself if you try and pour water out of it, right? It's the silliest thing ever. But that's how important and how intuitive or counterintuitive design can be. A famous quote from the book is, "If a door needs a sign that says push, it's a failure of design." And we still see it today, right? I was literally in Paris in H&M Home yesterday, and here we go. I know it says tires in the corner or push, or pull, sorry. The push is on the other side. But as you can see, the handle is the same on both sides, and so the handle is not giving us any indication of what to do with it. So we find ourselves pulling, pushing, not quite figuring out, oh yeah, oops, sorry, oh, nope, you walk into someone. The fact that we still haven't fixed this in 2025, I mean, come on, guys. But the equivalent is, if an AI needs a prompt engineering course, or worse, a computer science degree, it's the same kind of failure. And so, thinking about these principles, what can we learn from them? How do they apply in today's era? They do apply, but AI changes how we think about them. So, today I'm going to give you 3 transformations, 3 new ways, if you will, to think about interfaces as you make them. The first is going on from what can it do to what is it doing, right? And this builds on the 2 principles of visibility and signifiers. Here we've got Photoshop. Awesome tool, overwhelming, but we can see a whole bunch of buttons. And if we hover over those buttons, and if we look at the icons and there's a little bit of alt text that will say brush or lasso tool, we can start to figure out, okay, maybe I know how to use this. If you ask it to generate an image, you get a box. I think it says exactly, describe the image you want to generate. Sorry, I had to read the placeholder. And you can click around, and now you can set the style. And there's a menu on the side with some boxes of cool images, but I don't know what about that is the style. Is it the color? Is it the texture? Is it the contrast? Like, what style am I applying when I click on a pretty picture? Absolutely no clue. And the difference in this principle is recognition versus recall. Photoshop Original gives you recognition. At least I can see what I can do. I can recognize an icon. So even if I've forgotten how to use it, I can work my way back to being able to at least, remove a blemish or something or another. The Gen AI images, they demand recall to come up with something from scratch, effectively, or remember from scratch what you can do. And both are overwhelming, just in the complete opposite ways. And because of this, visibility just isn't enough anymore. Because AI has been trying. You got Claude here saying, "Hi, Maxim. Here are some things that I can do for you, like learning and life stuff." So, there we go. You can plan some stuff if you'd like. And I can create assessment questions for you. Very cool. But what context is this AI using? What files, sources, domains, or data is it drawing from? How did it arrive at the answer that it's going to give me? Visibility now is starting to move from here are your options to here is what I'm looking at to give you your options, right? And if we start to do that, maybe we can start to build some trust. Because if I can't see what you're using, then I can't judge if your answers make any sense. And only when we have trust can we really give up control, which is really what we're asking people to do. We're moving from that control paradigm into the intent-based paradigm. The second one is, we used to think about, oh, what happened? What's going on? What did the computer do? And now we might want to start thinking about what could I do differently, which builds on the principles of feedback and conceptual models. Traditionally, it's all about did my action work and what changed as a result. Well, I've clicked this item and added it to my basket, so I get a toast saying, hey, item added to basket, and the counter goes up and I can see, cool, it's in my basket. I've done the right thing. Now we're wondering, well, what could I have done better? How do I improve my prompt for next time? And what does good look like when I use this system? Feedback used to be mostly just a confirmation, but now it needs to be educational. Here we're looking at 2 generated images through Midjourney of some delicious food. Apologies, I took the photos from the magazine because I don't know if you knew, but Midjourney used to send out magazines. It was really, really cool to see all the cool artwork. And the item on the right, the beautiful chasu, this is the prompt. It's so big it doesn't even fit. It's basically the full-on recipe for the food. Very cool. The other is a breakfast burger on a brioche bun. AR, aspect ratio, 2:3. What's the difference between those 2 prompts, apart from the fact that one's really long and convoluted, the other one is deceptively simple? They both give you an image, so what do I do next? Users need to understand the system's behavior in order to build muscle memory, right? In order to also increase that trust. And so, is there a way that we can educate people whilst we are in this AI conversation with them? And then lastly, speaking of control, right? We're moving from how do I control this to how do I switch between controls, which looks at the principles of mapping and constraints. We used to be used to having just one interface, one set of controls, learn it once, and then from there on, cool, we can use it unless, there's this big UI refresh update that happens every 5 to 10 years and we have to relearn everything. But generally speaking, learn once, you're good to go. Now we're starting to think about which mode, voice, touch, text, or AI, fits this moment. And how do I move between them seamlessly? I think of this every time I cycle to Pilates 3 times a week. Not at the moment. I was hit by a car a few weeks ago, but I'm very happy to be here today, alive and talking to you. But I'm cycling, and Siri, oh, thank you. Siri recognizes that I'm cycling. Message from workout. Workout detected. Would you like to start an outdoor cycling workout? I'm already cycling. I know what I want to do. I'm furiously nodding at my AirPods, trying to go and get the feedback, the ding, 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 ding. If you've used AirPods, you know what I'm talking about. I'm trying to say yes without stopping. This is, by the way, not how I got into the accident. But I can't skip ahead. I basically have to listen to the entire script before it really registers that I'm trying to say yes, right? Every single time. We're trying to add convenience, but it doesn't always feel like it. And so when you choose the right modality for the context, you increase the speed to the outcome that we're trying to achieve. Voice input typically twice as fast than typing. But then reading, visual scanning, is 10 times faster than listening. So how do we start to play with these different modalities that we've got now in order to make something really fast and really intuitive? Because just sticking a microphone button up is probably not the only way. I have a lot to say about that, but we're going to leave it, or else y'all be like, oh my God, Maxime, I need coffee. So, yes. But we have some basic things we can apply. Voice input for when hands are busy, visual for comparison when precision is important, and touch. Sometimes there's controls and, stakes are high. You want to make sure that you're creating, drawing, tapping, or being really precise and doing the right thing. And so taking these 3 kind of new ways of thinking about stuff and new questions that we can ask ourselves, we can build on our old principles and be left with this kind of roadmap. So if there's one thing you want to save or keep, it would be this slide. Norman taught us how to make things understandable, right? Intuitive and understandable. Now we have to make the understanding visible. So by increasing context visibility, you increase trust. By increasing educational feedback, we increase the learning. And by increasing modal orchestration, we can increase efficiency. So picking the right modes at the right time. Because here's what's at stake, right? I'll be honest, AI is confusing as fuck. Not because AI isn't smart, isn't cool, or whatever, right? It's because we're not meeting people where they're at. We've basically entered this revolution and no one has any clue what's going on. And we're wondering why everyone's crashing. And the upsetting thing is, it's been a real privilege for us. Mobile computing has democratized basically access and information to everyone because we can just pull this device out of our pocket, find information, get access to things, run a business, make money, talk to friends, talk to family. And how cool is it that we've been part of that? I don't know about you all, whether you started iOS yesterday or I started 2009. It's really effing cool. And AI is kind of taking away and leaving people behind because the people who aren't catching up, who aren't understanding what's going on, will they soon be out of a job? Like, what's going to happen? So we need more people to be focused on this human-centered design, to be thinking about that in the back of their minds as they are developing, creating components, doing the thing. And I believe that's our competitive advantage because you already know so much of this. You work with constraints all the time. You know about performance, platform conventions, context, all this kind of stuff. And you know how to build for humans. In my opinion, the phone is the most human-centered interaction that we've had ever. It's a device that we carry in our pockets. It's with us all the time. Arguably, it's the first thing we see in the morning, the last thing we see before bed. So here's your challenge. This week, try and apply one of the principles to your current project. And if you're thinking, Maxim, I work for an organization, a corporate, I can't just go and go rogue off of our sprint. Talk to your designer. Ask, what do users already know? And how can we build on that context? Because at the end of the day, the future doesn't just depend on Hollywood's imagination, right? The future depends on people just like us, like you, getting this right. And so in this talk, I promised you the post-screen era, and you might be thinking, Maxime, where are the holograms, the brain chips, or at the very least, the AI agents? Well, in this post-screen era, it isn't so much about removing the screens. It's about the screens knowing when to get out of the way. And before we can do that, we need to trust it. And so I hope that you will help me make it such that people can trust our interfaces going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. That was really interesting.
Sure thing.
Yeah, I think obviously there's been a lot of stuff coming out about this. Is there any sort of, besides the Don Norman book that you mentioned, the Design of Everyday Things, are there other things that you recommend people look into if you want to learn more about sort of how to try to bring more human-centeredness into designing with AI?
It's interesting because actually there's not enough research on it as you would expect. There's an interesting article that came out last year by IBM about designing for Gen AI interfaces, and a lot of it is about co-creation and also imperfection because, of course, AI, it's not deterministic, right? So, and we know what that means, that we're not always going to get the same output, but most people don't know that. So that's a really good paper. And then I think in general, though, consuming content around human-centered design will help think about how can we apply that to AI. Because if the people who really know how AI works understand that part, we can really get somewhere. But I believe you recommended something cool to me earlier today.
Oh, yeah. I was talking about, there's an interesting paper that's called AI as Normal Technology. It's it's from the same authors of a book that's called AI Snake Oil, which they don't actually think AI is snake oil, but they think there's a lot of snake oil being sold around AI. And their take on the AI as normal technology is pretty interesting. It's also online for free, which is nice. Yeah, Josh, you wanna?
All right. We have two questions. They might be related. So I'm going to combine them together. How can you trust a system that can give very different answers to the same question? And then, do you think it's a problem that systems are changing constantly?
It is absolutely a problem that they're changing that fast because, we try and design for one thing, and then before you know it, a new model has come out. So it is a challenging time. And I think the fact that AI gives different answers all the time, it's not so much it's a feature, it's not a bug or whatever. It's more people don't know that. And so can we convey that? Can we give that knowledge to other people so that they understand what's happening? Because we can't change how generative AI works. That's the way the system is. But passing that on to other people, I think, is a really good start.
All right. And then, have you noticed good and noticeable examples of AI integration that you can share with us? Something positive about AI.
Yes, sorry, I have been a bit doom and gloom. Um, I think a couple. So even in Photoshop, right, generative fill or like removing things is a very good example of something you've always wanted to do, and now it just works like magic. I'm very curious about the AirPods translation feature. So my AirPods are arriving today, in London. So I don't have them yet. But if you saw the keynote, right, like you can wear them and you can just listen to people speaking in other languages. And I wonder, is the delay an issue? Like, how long is the processing taking? And then they also have this thing where you would show a phone to someone to show the reply. How does that work? But I'm excited. Like, things like that looks like we're headed in the right direction.
Oh, we just got a bunch more. Okay. Let me read. Do you have any while I read? I'm a slow reader today.
Yeah, fair enough. One thing that I think is an interesting thing is just like it- having been unofficially appointed the tech support for my entire family. Um, it's something where there's a lot of stuff where even in the current paradigm,
Mhm.
people have a really hard time learning new things.
Mhm.
How do you think that's going to affect the way that people need to learn about AI?
It's interesting because I was speaking yesterday, and someone mentioned basically that this whole idea that we've got around learning isn't even true. Like, some people are visual people, and some people are like, like, oh, I'm an auditory person or something. Apparently, that's not the case. But I think learning more about learning how to learn is an important part of this as well, because we need to teach people things really quickly.
Mm.
And so rather than thinking, well, can we take 6 months to try and build a super intuitive interface? It's like, okay, what are ways that we can signal or show or share quickly? How can we guide them? And also, there's the principle of constraint so that people don't make mistakes, right? If you constrain their options or what they can do, then we can kind of guardrail them. I think it's going back to some of that, but it is a hard time because you need to relearn stuff faster and faster now, and it's not easy for people.
No, it is not.
All right. I got one more that keeps getting upvoted and I keep losing my spot. This might be made up. I haven't heard this term before, but we started to talk about GEO, generative engine optimization, as the new SEO. Any advice to think about our design with this in mind?
I'll be honest, I've heard of it and I still have no idea because I don't exactly know how all the models are training stuff. So how do you come or get into their models? I was so proud of a friend of mine. She's an amazing physio and stretch therapist, and she told me a few weeks ago that someone showed up on her doorstep and she's like, "Well, how did you find us?" Well, I asked ChatGPT. He told me to come to you. And I was like, and she was so chill about it. And I was like, "How did you do that? That's amazing." And she was like, "I don't know." Um, I don't know if you've played with the research features in both Claude and ChatGPT, but they're showing a lot of sources, like where they're getting stuff from. So that's massively improved. And you can click through and find the actual links of the articles and the papers and so on. So I'm wondering if there's something there where you can show where information's come from, and that could maybe also start to disclose what GEO looks like. Um, but I'll be honest, I'm not an expert on GEO, so sorry.
I'm also not. I think that's all we got for questions.
Okay. Thank you very much. We've got a little bit of coffee coming up, so please go enjoy some coffee, and we'll be back in a little bit.